Body Opel Insignia, a reflection of progress. After the presentation of the car in 2008, it became clear that Opel designers have finally entered the 21st century. Body lines are dynamic and even frankly aggressive. Sedan on the streets of a big city looks great. Flaws? There are times when body gaps do not match. And this is not the result of repair after the accident, but assembly flaws. Despite this fact, the Insignia is a modern car for a modern family. The nature of the model predetermined a powerful sales success. Only in the first quarter, the number of orders for the new Opel model exceeded the annual sales volume of its predecessor, the Opel Vectra. The base for the Opel Insignia was a 1.6-liter 115 horsepower petrol aspirated. This motor is the most reliable and trouble-free, but acceptable dynamic performance is out of the question. Quite stable and atmospheric 1.8. True, the timing gears can jam and make noise. The first, as a rule, is the gear on the intake shaft. Both Ecotec series motors use a toothed timing belt. The 1.4-liter turbo engine with multiport fuel injection has problems with the intake manifold and valve cover. Timing is driven by a chain. Sometimes in 1.4 turbo engines, the piston partitions between the rings are destroyed. At the same time, traction drops, and the engine begins to consume a lot of oil. Repairs will be very expensive. Most often, the disease occurs in lovers of driving at low speeds. The larger 1.6 turbo is more successful than the 1.4-liter turbo engine. Its distinguishing features are the timing belt drive and direct fuel injection. The updated 1.6 turbo CD with direct injection and timing chain appeared in 2013. It is more economical, but less productive. In addition, it has a number of weaknesses. The first motors were recalled due to the risk of destruction of the spark plug electrode. Later, cases of destruction of piston rings and partitions between them began to be discovered. However, problems with pistons are not universal. Quite a few 1.6 ED, A16XHT, have covered more than 150,000 kilometers without serious breakdowns. After 50 to 70,000 kilometers, the valve cover may whistle. It's all about the crankcase ventilation valve. The turbocharged 2-liter engine is based on the earlier 2.2-liter Australian Holden. It provides good dynamics, but consumes a lot of fuel. Timing drive chain. The shafts use timing gears, which are not very durable. They cost more than their counterparts on atmospheric 1.8. In 2013, the 2.0 turbo CD direct injection version was introduced. Both motors are sometimes forced to change a faulty turbocharger. And in the pre-style version with the 820 NHT, the partitions between the rings on the pistons sometimes collapsed. There are also diesel modifications on the market. A choice of 130 and 160 horsepower versions of the 2.0 CDTI engine. The weaker one accelerates the sedan to 100 km/h in 11 seconds, the more powerful faster in 9.5 seconds. Both variations have the same fuel consumption. In the urban cycle, it is equal to 8L/100 km, while on the highway the appetite drops to 5 liters. Diesel engines are created in collaboration with Fiat. They are quite dynamic and very economical. The timing belt uses a belt drive. Unfortunately, turbodiesels become a source of problems relatively quickly. Most often, you have to deal with failures of the EGR valve, flow meter and failures in the software for controlling the operation of the particulate filter. An increase in speed to 1200 to 1500 and increased fuel consumption, by 1 to 1.5 liters, will tell you about the beginning of burning the particulate filter. During the regeneration procedure, the engine must not be turned off. In addition, there is rapid wear of the engine mounts. Sometimes leaks are found in the cooling system, the dampers in the intake manifold stop working, and the pipe that supplies compressed air from the turbocharger loses its tightness. The biggest problem with the 2.0 CDT is the rubber seal between the oil pump and the oil pickup. The seal hardens over time and the tightness of the connection drops. As a result, part of the oil through the seal drains back into the sump. The pressure in the lubrication system is reduced. the disease manifests itself closer to 200,000 kilometers. Unfortunately, many owners have no idea about this problem. And the low oil pressure indicator lights up only for 3 seconds, and even then, when the engine is cold. And the indicator is that important bell that no one pays attention to. A little later, at best, you have to change the crankshaft and liners, at worst, the entire engine. How to avoid trouble? After purchase, remove the pan and replace the seal. But for this you have to dismantle the gearbox. The operation is expensive, but engine repairs are much more expensive. Problem area and glow plugs. It is recommended to change them as a set. Many diesel versions use regular ones. But there are modifications with PSG candles. These spark plugs are equipped with a pressure sensor and are used in 2 cylinders only. Fortunately, a dual-mass flywheel can withstand more than 200 to 300,000 kilometers. Why fortunately? With proper care, fuel injectors and a turbocharger can go through the same amount. At the very end of 2015, Opel's own 1.6 CDT appeared in the asset of the model. It complies with Euro 6 emission standards and uses a chain to drive the timing. In the first copies, the turbocharger often failed. The engines were combined with either a 6-speed manual or a 6-speed automatic. Unlike competitors, Opel did not use automated dual-clutch transmissions. The mechanics of the M32 were combined with small gasoline engines. It often caused problems due to premature wear of the shaft bearings. Since 2012, the bearings have been reinforced and began to use a different oil. Since then, the failure has become less common. With the larger 2.0 turbo and 2.0 CDT, the F40 mechanics were installed. Owners often noted problems with the gear selection mechanism. Yes, and bearings at times also required updating. Machines 3. Jimovsky, 6T70 relied on all-wheel drive versions, and 6T45 on cars with 1.6 CD. Izanovsky, AF40/TF80SC was installed on other modifications. In general, the boxes are reliable, although there is a need for repairs after 150 to 250,000 kilometers. For a surcharge, all-wheel drive systems could equip cars with 2.0 turbo, 2.8 V6 and 2.0 CDT engines. In the 4x4 versions, the Haldex electro-hydraulic clutch was used with the rear axle connected. Until 2011, you could choose either a standard all-wheel drive system or a more advanced one with an active rear differential lock. The latter was distinguished by an additional clutch at the output of the differential on the left side in the direction of travel. Rear differential failures are expensive to fix. The problem affected all-wheel drive versions, mainly the first years of production. The owners also had to deal with leakage of the transfer case seals. The list of advantages of the German car complements the chassis. Tight suspension allows you to safely take turns at high speed. The overall picture spoils the steering a little. Engineers should do more to ensure that the driver has more information on the steering wheel. Standard suspension includes McPherson struts at the front and a multi-link rear. All-wheel drive versions have a different scheme on the rear axle, the so-called H-arm integral suspension. The Sport package used modified McPherson struts with the wheels attached to the struts via the steering knuckles. Some vehicles are equipped with FlexRide electronic shock absorbers. The individual suspension elements are quite strong, with the exception of the ball bearings of the front levers. As a rule, the chassis needs the first major update only after 150,000 kilometers. In the case of FlexRide, you need to be prepared for the high cost of any repairs. Wheel bearings will last more than 80 to 120,000 kilometers. The steering rack may knock or leak after 150 to 200,000 kilometers. Original brake pads and discs wear out quite quickly due to the relatively large weight of the car. And failures in the operation of the electric parking brake are associated with damage to the fragile cable located behind the wheel arch. Opel Insignia is a typical computer carrier. Most of the problems arise not because of defects in the mechanisms, but because of the raging electronics. A typical example is messages about non-existent malfunctions, satellite navigation errors, failure to control the air conditioner or central lock. The recipe for well-being is quite simple: regular monitoring and software updates. In addition, when choosing a mechanic, the owner must remember that an advanced car requires specialized technical assistance. Among the problems associated with the electrician, malfunctions of the trunk lock, power windows, and even the automatic transmission control system, a firmware update was required. Over time, the cable in the protective corrugation between the body and the front door is damaged. Another source of adversity is AFL adaptive headlights. The control system or electric drive fails. An audible signal may also fail. To replace it, you will have to dismantle the front bumper. In the first models, the standard failure was an open circuit in the seat heating power supply. The defect lies in the electrical wiring. But to get to it, you need to remove the chair, which increases the cost of repairs. The body is not prone to corrosion. Sometimes the bumper mounting screws loosen, or the muffler mount begins to rust. Before buying an Opel Insignia, you need to be clear about certain points. The car is able to give a lot of pleasant impressions, but on the other hand, it will not be cheap to operate. The complex and not fully developed design of the Insignia, combined with expensive auto parts, increases the cost of some repairs to astronomical values. How to avoid problems? Carefully check the car before buying, and then regularly service by experienced and professional mechanics.